Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya. Naram Chaiva Narottama. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tado Jayamudiraye Nasta Presha Padreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavata Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Text 11. This is a very famous verse, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada's, writing this and translating this in Vrindavan, so it's even more pertinent. All right. Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo. Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo. Yasmin pratishlokam abhadyavatyapi. Yasmin pratishlokam abhadyavatyapi. Namanyantasya yashonkitanyat. Namanyantasya yashonkitanyat. Shinvandi gayanti grinanti sadhava. Shinvandi gayanti grinanti sadhava. Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo. Yasmin pratishlokam abhadyavatyapi. Namanyanantasya yashonkitanyat. Shinvandi gayanti grinanti sadhava. Tadvag visarga janataga viplavo. Yasmin pratishlokam abhadyavatyapi. Namanyanantasya yashonkitanyat. Srinvandi gayanti grinanti sadhava. Tadvag visarga janataga viplavo. Tasminyati shlokam abhadyavatyapi. Namanyanantasya yashonkitanyat. Shinvandi gayanti grinanti sadhava. Is anyone on the girl side? Oh, go. Sorry, go ahead. Janataga. Tadvag Visarga Janataga Viplava. Yasmin Rati Shlokam Abhadyavadyapi. Namanyanantasya Shomkitanya. Shinvan Nigayanti Grinanti Sarva. One girl has to do it. Kalu, you want to do it? Tadva Visarga Janataga Viplava. Yasmin Prati Shlokam Abhadyavadyapi. Namanyanantasya Yashonkitanya. Shinvan Digayanti Grinanti Sadhava. Let's read it word to word together. Tad, that, walk, recovery, visarga, creation, janata, the people in general, aga, sense, viplava, revolutionary, yasmin, in which, pratishlokam, each and every stanza, abadavati, irregularly composed, api, in spite of, namani, transcendental names, etc. Gayanti, do sing. Grananti, do accept. Sadhava, the purified men who are honest. Translation by Srila Prabhupada together. On the other hand, that literature, which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, etc., of the unlimited Supreme Lord, is a different creation, full of transcendental words directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So, yeah, this verse itself is in the Bhagavatam, and as we'll see more in the purport, Prabhupada talks about his translations as well. And yeah, Prabhupada gives an example that when there's a fire in a building, it's like, somebody might be there and they might not know your language, but a good chance is that they'll be able to convey to you that there's a fire in the building. They might, even though they might know a different language, they'll be able to wake you up to the situation. So that's what this verse is saying, that it might be the verse or even the whole text might be not composed well, but the message itself is so pertinent that it will go through. It will go through to those who are sincere about spiritual life. Actually, it will go through to those people who have some common sense, who can see that that life is not just about eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Life is not just about, how I'm gonna just get my next meal, how I'm gonna just do, just have clothing or whatever else. That it has to be more than that. It has to be. And so, because even in I forget the name of the researcher who came up with the verse. Does anyone remember? It's on the top. They have self-actualization term. What's it called? Yeah, Maslow, right? Maslow, yeah. Not Pavlov. That's the dog one. Maslow, something like that. Maslow. Okay. Hierarchy. So yeah, they have on the bottom. They have all the eating, sleeping, mating, defending, basically. And then on top, to really feel fulfilled in life, you need self-actualization. I think that's the term he uses. So even for those who are not necessarily interested in spiritual life, they see that there has to be a little more than just figuring out the bare minimum of life, just survival, because that's the animals' propensity is to survive and get your next meal and so forth. But yeah, so anyone who has just a little bit of foresight can see that no, the human form of life has to be more than that. And so when they hear the message of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it resonates with them, it resonates with them. Like, yes, this makes sense. That actually the human form of life is there to bring about this revolution in the misdirected civilization of this world, and in our own lives. Um, Vaisheshika Prabhu often talks about how books are still very relevant, because sometimes people think, oh, newspapers are going out of business, and books are becoming more online. There's ebooks and so forth, but the number of books that are being sold is still pretty going strong, and oftentimes actually revolutions were caused by books. Um, Martin Luther, did he have a book, or did he just write the 100 things against the Catholic Church on the door? Or did he have a book also? The books, right? And there, yeah. He wrote he translated the Bible, right, into Latin, from Latin, you know, printing. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And because that was the thing, nobody knew, the common man didn't know Latin, I believe, right? And so they couldn't actually read the Bible. And so the priests were really like, holding on to it because that's how they were controlling the masses. And so Martin Luther, it's interesting that Martin Luther, the Renaissance in Europe was around the same time as Lord Chaitanya was here in the East. And so it was the same mood over there, like, no, let's bring God to people and not just have them be controlled by this organized religion. Now, the Hare Krishnas are against organized religion because we are the most disorganized religion. So if anyone says, I'm not into organized religion, welcome. We're totally disorganized religion. But yeah, Martin Luther did that through books, and even the in Soviet Union, the revolution, I forget the name they had for it, but it was from a book. Yeah, the book that they were spreading around, and that actually caused a revolution. I don't know if it was the same in China or not. It might have been. Uh, I feel like there was a book called the Red Book or something. Might have been in Soviet Russia, right? Was China? So yeah, so it's like just a book can cause so much revolution. So the same idea here also, that just a book. And actually, as a matter of fact, when Prabhupada went to Russia or Soviet Union back in the day, he was there for 6 days only. That's all he was allowed to be there for. But they met this one young man, and he became a devotee right away in those 6 days. And and what they would do is they would make a photocopy of the Bhagavad Gita, and they would just smuggle it around. And so just by that, actually, people became devotees. So just having a book out there somewhere, you never know how it could, what it could cause. A god brother of mine, Rasaraj, he was living his life in Montana, and he went to his friend's house, and his friend had a Science of Self-Realization by Prabhupada, and he just picked it up. He was 18, I think, at that point, and or 19, and started reading it, and he was like, "Oh my God, like, this is it! Like, this is the goal of life. This is the meaning of life." And so he started calling the temples in the back of the book, and he called the Krishna House phone, and Kalakant Prabhu. Yeah, I don't know if Kalakant Prabhu was traveling at that point, but I guess he must have gotten his contact and gotten in touch with them. And so he talked to Kalakant Prabhu, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm in Montana, and I really want to try out Krishna consciousness." And Kalakant Prabhu was like, "Well, I'm 2.5 hours away from Montana." He was in Swarnagati, Canada. And he was like, "I can come pick you up tomorrow." So he was in Canada, and he was like, "All right, I'm gonna drive down and pick you up tomorrow." And Kalakanta was traveling with like these two other bhaktas, and they were like, "Oh, are we gonna pick someone random in Montana?" So yeah, like the next day or very soon or a few days later, Kalakanta went and picked him up and brought him here, and we were like, "Oh, we're getting a new bhakta." And Ross, I can never pronounce his last name. Vigans. Where Ross came, and yeah, he just jumped right into Krishna consciousness, and in a year he got initiated. So it's like you never know. And he's still around. He's in Alachua now, and he works at UF. He eats Krishna lunch too. And yeah, you just never know. One single book of Krishna consciousness can make a change. Because, okay, actually, before I keep speaking, maybe we should go stop reading Prabhupada's purport. All right, I'm going to start reading and then I'll ask somebody to carry on. Purport. It is a qualification of the great thinkers to pick up the best even from the worst. It is said that the intelligent man should pick up nectar from a stalk of poison, should accept gold even from a filthy place, should accept a good and qualified wife even from an obscure family, and should accept a good lesson even from a man or from a teacher who comes from the untouchables. These are some of the ethical instructions for everyone in every place without exception. But a saint is far above the level of an ordinary man. He is always absorbed in glorifying the Supreme Lord, because by broadcasting the holy name and fame of the Supreme Lord, the polluted atmosphere of the world will change. And as a result of propagating the transcendental literatures like Srimad Bhagavatam, people will become sane in their transactions. While preparing this commentation on this particular stanza of Srimad Bhagavatam, we have a crisis before us. Our neighboring friend China has attacked the border of India with a militaristic spirit. We have particularly no business in the political field, yet we see that previously there were both China and India, and they both lived peacefully for centuries without ill feeling. The reason is that they lived those days in that atmosphere of God consciousness, and every country over the surface of the world was God-fearing, pure-hearted, and simple, and there was no question of political diplomacy. There is no cause of quarrel between the two countries, China and India, over land which is not very suitable for habitation, and certainly there is no cause for fighting on this issue. So, a brief note. Yeah, the piece of land that they were fighting on actually is one of the highest battlefields in the world. So for a good chunk of the year, they don't even have soldiers stationed over there because it's so cold. And so they fought over that. So it's like, you can't even be there. Anyway, so yeah, that's what Prabhupada is referring to. It's like land that's not even suitable for habitation. But due to the age of quarrel, Kali, which we have discussed, there is always a chance of quarrel on slight provocation. This is due not to the issue in question, but to the polluted atmosphere of this age. Systematically, there is propaganda by a section of people to stop glorification of the name and fame of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, there is a great need for disseminating the message of Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world. So yeah, Prabhupada's writing that in italics, that systematically there is a propaganda by a section to stop glorification of the name and fame of the Supreme Lord. And especially Prabhupada's, he was born in 1896. The war for freedom in India happened, the British left, and then lo and behold, the great Indian politicians came to power. And then the first thing they did was, one of the first things that happened in India in the early 1950s were financial scams. Actually, I was reading about it the other day. And so the first Prime Minister, Nehru, his son-in-law, he was also a politician, and he was upset about it. And he actually protested vehemently that, we kicked out the British. Now we have this country that we should, help prosper. But there's all these scams that are happening. And so, all those things will happen again and again. It does not matter whoever is in charge, some foreign entity or the locals. It does not matter unless they actually have a revolution in their own hearts, unless and until they're God conscious. And Nehru also, even though he was born in a priestly Brahmin family, he used to go by a title called Pandit. He was a Pandit by birth. And so Pandit means learned scholar in the scriptures. But he didn't quite grasp the purport of all the scriptures. And so I think I mentioned before, but he very famously said that the factories and the industries are the temples of modern India. So his focus was that we got to focus on factories and industries and make India into this manufacturing hub. And, then we'll be able to, set foot in modern, 20th century. And so this was happening in the 50s. And Prabhupada is writing this purport that, yeah, there's systematic propaganda. There was systematic propaganda, and there still is in the world. But yeah, God consciousness, glorifying God, that's just, that's not important, it doesn't do anything, doesn't serve any purpose, it doesn't bring in money, doesn't solve our problems and so forth materially. So what's the use of this? Rather we gotta do, you know, got to march on and make the world very materially advanced. And so Prabhupada was pointing that out. But actually, what people don't realize is that without God consciousness, there'll only be quarrel and hypocrisy, especially in this age. And that's what Prabhupada's pointing out very practically. Because there was a systematic propaganda and reducing God consciousness, naturally there was more strife, there was more war, there was quarrel and so forth. And when people come to Krishna consciousness or they come to a center or temple, they see that devotees of different backgrounds are able to cohesively work together and glorify God. And it makes an impact on people's hearts. Actually, yesterday I was meeting with the previous mayor of Gainesville, and so he was mayor till 2023, I think, and or 2022, and yeah, I met him at a neighborhood, at my neighborhood meeting. Turns out he lives in my neighborhood. So I was just telling him about, he was telling me what he does now. So I told him what Krishna House, how we can support by providing meals. They rehabilitate refugees from other countries in Gainesville. So I said, oh, we'll be happy to send some meals. So he got really excited. And he said, oh, why don't you come over? I said, sure. So I went to his house, and then he was saying how, growing up, he grew up in Gainesville. And he said that, he would love Krishna lunch and the devotees would feed him prasadam. So he loved it. And so he always had a good impression of the devotees. And he said that whenever I go to a Hare Krishna event, he said, I always see there's so much diversity. There's people from different backgrounds, from different nationalities. And he said that, yeah, they all seem to get along really well. Yeah, they all, and for people, in the regular world, it actually is an anomaly. It's like, wow, uh, people from such diverse backgrounds are able to actually, worship God together, or do anything together, peacefully. And that's why Prabhupada also, said, what's the point of United Nations? It's like, unless you have God in the center, you cannot be united, actually. And so Prabhupada is making this point that, yeah, if you try to take God out of the picture, then what happens when you just take God out of the picture? What are some other things that fill that vacuum? What normally happens? What fills normally? Material pleasures, available. Mm. Interesting. Yeah. And then they ask where you got. Okay. Yeah. I'm thinking about politics. I feel like people are politics and sports. Yeah. Yeah. Family members that I have that just are atheists, they're agnostic, out of their mind. They love sports, and then they start getting into politics. Yeah. Politics and sports. Yeah, I mean there have been stadiums for a long time, right? In the Roman Empire, they had stadiums, so and it was there to entertain the general public, the general masses, and yeah, it's like, even that point about shootings, it's true. It's like when there's a lack of God consciousness, then all kind of mishaps happen. And sure, it might not, of course there can be so many solutions to ending shootings or things like that, but at the same time it's like those calamities oftentimes are heavy reactions, and because people are just totally forgetting the goal of life, to worship God, to develop a relationship with God and so forth. So that's why there can be all kinds of reactions. It's not like God's being like, all right, I'm upset and I'm going to send a shooter. It's not like that. But there is a correlation in how the human civilization gets more distressed and degraded over time when God is totally out of the picture. Because yeah, if you take God out of the picture, then morality and ethics also naturally decline. You know, when there's no God, when there's no, you'd be like, okay, I can just do whatever. There's not really going to be any reaction. You know, and it's like there's no law of karma. That's like, oh, I'll just morality just goes down. It's just survival of the fittest at that point. You know, it goes to that. Yes, go people, and then Steven.
Intensity to worship. So if you take God out of the picture, then it'll be Taylor Swift or One Direction or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Puff Daddy. Who was very famous. He was actually a theist, but he wrote this really big work, The Brothers Karamazov. His name was Dostoevsky. And one of the characters in that book is a monk. He's like a novice Orthodox Christian monk, and he has an older brother who's an atheist. And they're having a conversation one day, and the atheist brother named Ivan, he says, like, if God isn't real, then anything is permissible. But yeah, so what you said just kind of reminded me of that. If there's no God, then do whatever we want.
Yeah. What do you all think about that statement? It's an interesting statement. If God isn't real, anything is permissible. Is that true? What do you think?
More atheistic or agnostic people, they really don't like this line of argument.
Yeah.
And they would say that's preposterous, and of course there's still morality. And what makes it tricky is that people do a lot of nonsense in the name of religion.
Yeah, of course.
There's that. Yeah, there's like very low level of religious practice, but it gets masqueraded as something very pure and high. So that's a problem too.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think? If there's no God, will anything and everything be permissible? Just do whatever and get away with it? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there's still some underlying like subconsciously, like agnostic, atheistic people, they still follow morals out of like subconsciously, we just know better.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be there. Yeah.
When I was agnostic, I didn't believe that I needed a God in order to do right.
Yeah.
So it's not always the fact that there is punishment after you do something wrong. So you don't necessarily have to have God in order to be a righteous person.
Yeah. I mean, there can be people in the mode of goodness, right? And then they can have somebody talking outside. And they can be, there can still be some standards. Yeah, and I think the point of Srimad Bhagavatam makes is that for a civilization, at least over time, it can get astray without God in the picture. It might not happen right away. And it's not also that Krishna is such a vindictive God where it's like, if you don't worship me, I'm gonna, send a hailstorm or whatever else there is, but at the same time, like it's a very gradual process, and it can be a slippery slope where when God's totally out of the picture, then over time there's misdirection. Is that you phone's talking outside? No, it's all right. It's on the phone. All right. What else? Any other thoughts? Yeah, John.
Just a quick thought that comes to mind about like a godless environment. I was thinking about the novel and the book Lord of the Flies, and it's basically like a group of kids that end up being castaways on an island, and it's just like a social experiment about what happens, and they try to have some type of organization amongst them, and they have like one guy that writes up the laws and one guy that gives the laws. And then basically there's like an alpha male, and he just says, I don't want to do anything any y'all say, and I'm going to take whatever I want. And then all the kids, they start following him and they just become savages. And so basically they like overthrow the law and they just do whatever they want. But it's so interesting with different social, experiments like that or theories like that. If you just place devotees in that situation, like if all of us ended up on an island, what would happen? I don't think that would happen. I think we would go deeper into devotion and, yoga and unity. So
yeah, and it makes me think how in Satya Yuga, the golden age, and everybody was a brahmana of priestly nature, and they're in the mode of goodness. So when somebody is in the mode of goodness, then they know what the right thing to do is, and they do the right thing. So it's so that's what hopefully we hope that people are in that stage. But as time goes on, then people go to the lower modes, and then they just do whatever they think is the best for themselves, no matter the cost or no matter the ethics. So right now it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag of people so there are people who do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, but then there are many people who just there because they want to survive and they will do whatever it takes. The Bhagavad Gita talks about it, right? The divine and the demoniac natures. And so we have both the divine and the demoniac natures in us. Which chapter is 16, is it? 16. And that verse where it talks about, so much I have gained and so much more I'll gain, I'll defeat my enemy and so forth. So that tendency can be there. And that's the beauty of Krishna consciousness, that as we chant and hear and chant, we see it's like we are able to do an inventory of our own heart, and we're able to see, all right, these are the many things in my heart, the good and the bad and the ugly, and it just becomes more real to us, and when we practice Krishna consciousness, then we can see, okay, this is where I'm at, and I can work on some things, but mostly I gotta pray to Krishna, like, please, Krishna, clean my heart, please purify me of these various things that are in my heart, and I pray that I can actually serve you in a meaningful way. So that's the beauty of Krishna consciousness. But it's an old debate, this morality, is that dependent on religion or God or not? But it's definitely is dependent to various degrees for sure. And but if people are in the mode of goodness, still it's good to have God in the picture. Otherwise, over time, and it might not be immediate, but over time, might even take centuries actually. These kind of degrades, and it's like when I took one grad level course in healthy organizations. So when there's a founder of an organization, there's normally a charismatic founder of an organization. Say Jesus for that, for example. It's this very charismatic leader set up. He started a movement, and religion came out of it. And these high principles that Jesus talked about. And so normally there's a founder, and then the founder has a following, and the followers, they have seen how the founder has acted, and they're able to emulate it. Bit of a gap, because they haven't seen the founder of the healthy organization, and so it's very important for that matter. That's why scriptures come in play at that point. It's like to both scriptures and instructions where they really capture the instructions of the founder, and so Srimad Bhagavatam captures the instructions of the original Supreme Personality, God Krishna, and the purpose capture the mood of the previous teachers, and so that's why it's so crucial to hear and chant. And so with time, things can often, if not decline, they can really change quite a bit, and and as time goes on, people can really just act out of what's in my best material interest and so forth. So yeah, that's why God and scriptures play such a big role in keeping civilization going upwards and not downwards. Yes, Prabhu.
That's put in place. You were speaking about mode of goodness and how helpful that could be. Over the years, I've thought a lot about this Vedic concept of the Brahmana, and specifically the Brahmana's tendency to be materially unattached and kind of eschew lots of possessions and a lavish lifestyle. Brahmanas keep themselves simple. And I used to speak to my dad about how that is just the ultimate anti-corruption fail-safe. If everyone in society were to respect these people who clearly want to live a simple lifestyle and take guidance from them, there's no incentive for the Brahmana. Like modern politicians, they just want to be rich, they want to have power, but the Brahmana, just their simplicity is a sign of their purity. Like the only reason they want to give guidance is for the sake of guidance itself. They don't have any ulterior motive. So that's a system that keeps things in check very nicely.
Yeah, originally the priests Chanakya Pandit, and Chanakya was a humble priest Brahmana, and he would live in his humble cottage. And the king said, "I can get you a better accommodation, And so he told the king, he said, "No, I don't want anything from you." He said, "If I accept money from you, then I won't be able to honestly tell you the truth." And normally that's the case, that if somebody, is on salary, then it's hard for them to just speak their mind or speak the truth to the king. So that's why he was like, "No, I'll just rather live simply and be able to just tell you what's on my mind." But yeah, so that's why oftentimes the Brahmanas would just live simply and not really be dependent on the king so much for wealth and other things. Yeah. What else? Yeah. Harley?
It's a nice connection. I appreciate that little thread of who to accept from and who not to accept from. Yesterday in Bhakti Shastri class on the mode of goodness, Kiara brought up a really nice point about mode of goodness, that it's tinged with mode of passion and the mode of ignorance. And so it could lead to pride or it could lead to contentment and
complacency.
Or complacency, yes. And so I just think there's, but then there's a level above the mode of goodness, where it's a pure transcendental goodness, and that's the mode that we're trying to work on.
Yeah. Let's go finish the book. You have a point? Thank you very much. This is an amazing discussion on morality and spirituality. I can't but notice that a lot of people actually, they don't understand God in a personal way. So that creates a vacuum for mundane morality. And when the fabric of morality is reduced to just mundane level, that anything goes, especially if you throw in the paradigm that life comes from matter, then there's no accountability. After this life, there's nothing. And this is why Prabhupada actually attacked this concept and Darwin. Well, they're kind of related. So yeah, life comes from matter. It's kind of the main thing that Prabhupada challenged as a false illusion, as a false premise, because it creates all kinds of very unhealthy social constructs. Like one of them is like, yeah, do whatever, just don't get caught. Yeah. Right? Yeah, that one's. Yeah. And we see even top to bottom politicians,
but just before the election. Because reality is the ultimate, as we see in Makita also. To kill these people who he has known all his life. And so, yeah, it's a moral dilemma. Yeah, it is. And in one sense, it is a moral dilemma. But yeah, I think there's higher principles that he had to follow at that point and actually have to fight for what was right. Any other thoughts, comments before we go on with the purport? So it is the duty of every responsible Indian to broadcast the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the world throughout the world to do all the supermost good, as well as to bring about the desired peace in the world. Because India has failed in her duty by neglecting this responsible work, there is so much quarrel and trouble all over the world. We are confident that if the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam is received only by the leading men of the world, certainly there will be a change of heart, and naturally the people in general will follow them. The mass of people in general are tools in the hands of the modern politicians and leaders of the people. If there is a change of heart of the leaders only, certainly there will be a radical change in the atmosphere of the world. We know that our honest attempt to present this great literature conveying transcendental messages for receiving the God consciousness of the people in general and re-spiritualizing the world atmosphere is fraught with many difficulties. Our presenting this matter in adequate language, especially a foreign language, will certainly fail, and there will be so many literary discrepancies despite our honest attempt to present it in the proper way. But we are sure that with all our faults in this connection, the seriousness of the subject matter will be taken into consideration, and the leaders of society will still accept this due to its being an honest attempt to glorify the Almighty God. When there is fire in a house, the inmates of the house go out to get help from the neighbors who may be foreigners, and yet, without knowing the language, the victims of the fire express themselves, and the neighbors understand the need, even though not expressed in the same language. The same spirit of cooperation is needed to broadcast this transcendental message of the Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the polluted atmosphere of the world. After all, it is a technical science of spiritual values, and thus we are concerned with the techniques and not with the language. If the techniques of this great literature are understood by the people of the world, there will be success. All right, I'd like to read the next paragraph. Last one.
When there are too many materialistic activities by the people in general all over the world, there is no wonder that a person or a nation attacks another person or nation on slight provocation. That is the rule of this age, a Kali or quarrel. The atmosphere is already polluted with corruption of all description, and everyone knows it well. There are so many unwanted literatures full of materialistic ideas of sense gratification. The people in general want to read, that is a natural instinct. But because their minds are polluted, they want such literatures. Under the circumstances, transcendental literature, like Srimad Bhagavatam, will not only diminish the activities of the corrupt mind of the people in general, but also it will supply food for their hankering after reading some interesting literature. In the beginning, they may not like it because one suffering from jaundice is reluctant to take sugar candy, but we should know that sugar candy is the only remedy for jaundice. Similarly, let there be symptomatic propaganda. Oh, yeah, good. Let there be systematic propaganda presented with so many faults, for it is recommended by Sri Narada, who has very kindly appeared in this chapter.
Prabhupada, the comments, thoughts. It's already 8:30, so Stephen, a minute.
So Srila Prabhupada was writing this part of the Bhagavatam while he was staying in the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan by himself. It's amazing how he uses like we and our so much. Like he's always saying, you know, we are presenting this. This is our attempt to do some little service. And it just like his humility is just like kind of coming through when he uses those pronouns, I guess.
Yeah, it was him, but in so many ways he was presenting his guru, his teacher, and the previous teachers. So yeah, often would use that. Also, it's like the Victorian English way of saying, they say we. They use plural often. So.
Yes, speaking of Prabhupada's humility, you mentioned a few times that like it says so many faults.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you think it's important to reckon for him to have that recognition? Like why do you think it's important that he puts this in his books?
That it has so many faults.
Yeah.
I mean, the verse itself imperfectly composed. You know, so that's why he's saying that, yeah, even his commentary might be imperfectly composed because English was not his first language, but he was trying his best to translate it because that's what his guru told him. So that's one reason where the verse itself says it, that it does not matter. What really matters is the intention, his intention, the Bhagavatam's intention, and so forth. So that's what matters. Yeah, that's one reason. What else? Any other thoughts on that question? My Prabhupada's pointing it out. Also, of course, his humility. He's saying that, yeah, I might not know the language, but I'm sincerely trying to give the message with the group. Yeah. And be encouraged to hear the message of the Bhagavatam, even though the packaging might not that great sometimes.
It's like substance over form, really. Like just earlier, maybe previous chapter, I don't know, they were saying that Sutta Goswami is perfect because he inherited the Puranic wisdom, even though, and then it mentions that even though he might not know other Vedas, how most of the Vedas, it's so technical, you have to say the mantras the right way and train your whole life in this rabbinical chanting, whatever, understand the knowledge. So it's the same theme, like it's just about the heart and about going directly to the essence, and details don't matter too much. Like language, and perfect sentences.
The science of Krishna consciousness is not just about externals, and of course the externals matter. You know, we do want to do our best and make sure everything's looks great. But externals matter, but at the same time, the main thing is really the internal message. You know, the internals of our heart Are we making advancement in spiritual life? Are we chanting sincerely? Are we chanting with all intention and attention? Are we doing that? And are we developing a nice, humble service attitude? Because that's what really helps us in our spiritual life. And we have that humble service attitude and we serve other devotees. And, we really try to share the message of Krishna consciousness with others. That's when, one makes a lot of spiritual advancement. And sure, yeah, there might not be perfect externally. We might make mistakes. We might forget things. How we were talking about yesterday. Kunti forgot her passport once when she was traveling, and I got on her case, and she was like, "But we are human. We make mistakes." So yeah, it's like one might make mistakes. One might forget things. But yeah, well, it's the intention that matters. What else? Any other thoughts, comments? Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because there might be so many perfect religions out there that look nice and shiny outside, but there might not be a lot of spiritual advancement that's going on. So yeah, for the Hare Krishna movement, we're a humble movement. It's been 54 years, 60 years of when Prabhupada came here, and it's a new movement. It's a fairly new religion. And of course, it's based on a really ancient religion, but it's a new religious movement still. And yeah, things might be not perfect, but the point is that the message is perfect. And so if one really hangs on to that and does not, get disturbed by some of the externals, then they can make advancement spiritually. That's purpose. All right, we'll stop here then. Bhagavatam ki.